Nebuchadnezzar summons the experience of the classic isometric impression city building titles that I've been covering on my channel for the last several years now. It is an indie offering set in ancient Mesopotamia that uses those classics as its jumping off point, managing to both be a tribute to them while at the same time improving on them in several important aspects. The similarities with Caesar III or Pharaoh are many, from the ancient time setting and the isometric perspective, to the grid pattern, to how the citizens move around the map, and more importantly, how they move in and out of your settlement, by using the Impressions solo road that traverses about 1/5 of any given map. Where it differs wildly from the Impressions games is that it has no walker system. Let me reiterate that, no walker system. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the Impressions games walker system, here's a crash course. Basically, in Impressions games, your citizens, or walkers, would get out of their houses to look for services they needed, and whenever they'd find an intersection, they would randomly pick one and continue walking. Yeah, that makes about as much sense as you think it does. Because that's what happens when I go looking for eggs. At each intersection, I roll a d4 and that's how I decide which street I'll go down looking for a shop. This means that unless you lock them into their neighborhoods, they'll just run around the map randomly, never finding the eggs they need. Even if you build the damn things right next to them. So there's none of that in Nebuchadnezzar. Partly because there are less service type buildings in this game. More on that later. And partly because the citizens only have to go to work, their houses get supplied by market workers. And since I mentioned market workers, one of the massive improvements that Nebuchadnezzar brings to the classic recipe is that you have to create each individual market worker's route, so you can be sure that all the houses are covered. And I can tell you how important and frankly realistic this feature is, especially after playing the Impressions games. Market workers have a limited distance range, it's about 7 houses length in a straight line, but you can double or triple dip on the amount of houses if you make loops or you do this sine wave curve type of deal. That being said, you can only stretch a market worker so far, even though theoretically they can cover the route, they might not be able to carry enough. So sooner or later you still need the second and maybe further on third market worker for the same product. All the gameplay systems in Nebuchadnezzar are focused around the ranges of various buildings and how to connect the production in one part of your settlement with the demand in a different one. And you do this by using warehouses and caravanserais. In Nebuchadnezzar, warehouses don't require workers in order to function, instead being used as stores for materials to be moved from one place to another. Manually connecting warehouses is another great feature that will offer you a lot of control over what and how much goes where. This is done by caravans, which you can hire from caravanserai buildings. There are several worker slots here that can be used at the same time. You will use these wonderful donkey caravans to shift needed raw materials or finished products from their place of creation to where they are needed, whether that's a market or a distant warehouse near the port where they can be then exported. I'm looking forward to the internet hive mind coming up with the ideal warehouse to caravanserai distance ratio. By the way, the caravanserais will let you know when any change to the road path has been made. Same with markets. It's a really nice safety type feature to make sure that your supply routes don't get interrupted without you being aware of it. Each production building will require its own haulers, and they will transport the building's goods everywhere within their range. As such, you can create standalone modular production blocks, as it were, where wheat, for instance, can be sent directly to a bakery instead of having it shipped to a warehouse first and to the bakery second. All you have to do is to make sure that the bakery, or better said bakeries, have at least one warehouse within their transport range that is open to the raw material they need. All production buildings, whether it's a farm, a clay pit, or a bakery, will have open worker slots. This means that you will be able to increase its output by simply hiring more people as opposed to having to build another one. You can have up to 5 worker slots per production building, which allows you to customize and rebalance things depending on requirements. And trust me, you'll be doing this quite a bit and fairly often, because the situation on the ground will change with every extra house or workplace you build. You'll still need to build multiple production buildings, don't get me wrong, but this hiring and firing of workers in order to modify a building's output will be something you use first when dealing with some sort of production to consumption imbalance. A similar granular control over function is present for the warehouses as well. You can control which items will be accepted, how much of them will be accepted, and also mark which items should be loaded by caravans and which should be unloaded. I hope I've driven home the idea that logistics chains and their balancing are the main gameplay focus of Nebuchadnezzar. Because of how much attention has gone into giving players the flexibility of increasing the numbers of workers in any given production and distribution building, as well as the types of detailed settings that will allow you to carefully store, stack, and move goods around your settlement. Some other quickfire things that I have to mention. Each mission begins with some historic info about ancient Mesopotamia. There is a communal pool of workers that all production buildings take from. No need to build a house near some distant clay pit for it to gain workers, like in the Impressions games. There is a prestige mechanic related to the number of citizens, the amount of trade, and the presence of monuments. It will generally influence how quickly or with which other cities you'll be able to trade. You can customize your monuments in a similar way to Foundation. When building monuments, you can either go with the pre-designed version or you can make your own. The more you advance in the campaign, the more the monuments will get bigger and prettier, as well as insanely harder to accomplish. Irrigation is something that you'll have to play around with for a bit in order to better understand how the canals affect the land around them, as well as plan ahead of time, because the pumps have a limited range and the more distance you want the water to travel, the more pumps you'll need to build, assuming you can place them close to where they're needed to begin with. The game is focused on 14 handcrafted missions which take place throughout a large period of time, the first 4 of which are the game's tutorial, with the 5th one being more of a learning mission as well. The more you advance through the missions, more houses, production and distribution buildings will make themselves available to you. There is no free play mode currently, although there is a scenario section in the main menu, so the game won't be limited to the base campaign. Okay, enough about the gameplay, let's look a bit at other features Nebuchadnezzar offers in terms of quality of life. You can move all the info windows around. Yes to all of this. Such a simple feature that used to be the norm back in the olden days of Afterlife, for instance, and I like to see it has been making a comeback, especially during this renaissance of the city building genre, it being present in Foundation as well. The game has 3 speed settings, 1, 2 and 3x, but also comes with an extra. When you need a bit of time to pass super quickly, just hold the E key and the game goes into 4x speed. It's a nice addition to City Builder speed settings in general, I think. There's a bunch of extra fun features as well. There's one setting that changes the size of your citizens, which doesn't do anything, it just makes them easier to see when zoomed out. And one option that allows you to zoom in super close to watch the animated action. It's very easy to check the distribution of goods. All you have to do is click on the product you want to look at and you will see a 3D bar graph-like visualization of the quantities present. This helps insanely much with you getting a clear visual idea of where you might have distribution issues even when you have enough items in stock. It is also clear from the start menu that the game comes with mod support, so we'll have to wait for a while and see what comes out of the mod scene. I'd also like to point your attention to the music, because it's really something special. It's thematic in essence, but blended with modern approaches. Very solid stuff. It's pretty clear that I really dig the game and I also enjoy playing it, but it does lack some things that might be very important to at least some of you watching right now. Nebuchadnezzar doesn't have any sort of damage mechanics or extra services. You won't need to think of building collapsing, no need for a security force, health services or cultural buildings. It also doesn't have any sort of upkeep costs for your buildings either, so once you start making money, you'll always be making a clear profit. This makes the game less complex than the Impressions classics, and at the very least, the upkeep costs can be patched in later. I don't think the same can be said about entirely new buildings though. Although who knows. Impressions games added things with expansions, so maybe that's something that's gonna happen with Nebuchadnezzar as well. We'll have to wait and see. As it stands now, I find the micromanaging and balancing of logistics chains to be extremely engaging. But then again, this is a highly subjective area and your results may vary. I feel I have properly informed you about the game's features or lack of. Despite the potential issues I just outlined, I'll still give it my nonsense seal of approval. You let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it wherever you think it might be appropriate. It'll also be great if you consider subscribing to my channel and then clicking the bell notification button. That last part is super important for small channels such as my own. I also have a Patreon page, so if you are so inclined, please check that out. I've been Steven Nonsense. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day and see you next time.